happy campers. It's a beautiful camping day. There's my dear wifey ready to go camping. We have our truck and trailer. We have our campsite right by the lake. Why haven't we backed in? Why isn't that the first thing we do? It's not the first thing we do because we have come to campgrounds where there's bad power. And so the first thing we do before we even back in is we plug in our power protector. And the reason we do that is in case we have bad power at the pedestal, and it has happened. So we have the white dog, we're good to go, and so let's go camping. A lot of people say, why would I need a power watchdog, or why do I need a power protector at all? And you might say, well, I come to the campground, I've been doing this for years, and I plugged in and everything's good, so I don't need that. There's a truck in the background, by the way. But here's the thing, the way these campgrounds are wired, and you can see that's the power box down there. They're kind of all wired in a leg. So let's say you're plugged in, everything is muy bueno, super good, and then here comes Uncle Schmucky in his trashed fifth wheel, plugs in, shorts out the whole leg, and now you've got thousands of dollars of little circuit boards that you're replacing. Will your insurance replace it? Maybe, but you know what would be really good? I'm gonna summon Mike Sokol, the guru of RV electricity, and I think he would explain this a little better even than I do. So, summoning Mike Sokol. My wife says I don't know what the heck I'm talking about, and that's not unusual, but I know who knows. And my good friend Mike Sokol from RV Electricity and No Shock Zone, he knows. He is the country's leading expert on RV power. Mike, man, it's always good to see you. How are you?
Well, very, very good. Thank you so much.
And
I am a student of disaster, I guess.
I am a creator of disaster. And so
yeah,
we have this new toy. You probably can't see it, but it's a Hughes Power Watchdog. It is the one with the RV Smart Surge Protector with EPO, which is EPO.
I don't know. Yeah, it's got
emergency power off. Sorry, you'd think I know that. And that's why I thought, well, why should I babble on and misinform everybody when I know the guy who knows the real answers to these things? So first of all, well, I guess you'll get into this. Why would I even want one of these things?
Well, because electricity is dirty. It just is. And, even in your house, there could be significant problems. But the further you get out into let's call it the boondocks, the more issues we're likely to have. Our electrical grid system in the United States is over 100 years old. We invented electrical AC distribution here. And, a lot of these campgrounds were put in, maybe in the 60s or 70s when things weren't quite as well thought out for code, and many of them are worn. So there is a significant possibility that you're plugging into something that may not be exactly right. So think about your house. When they built your house, they came out and then they inspected it, and all the wiring was okay and all good. Your RV is your house now, and it's plugged into a different power source, maybe every week. Who knows?
Yeah, frequently. And I've seen at RV parks where the guy or the person doing the maintenance has no idea about electricity.
You're exactly right. They really don't. They've not been trained on this. RV wiring and pedestal wiring is a little different than even many residential electricians have ever done. So they even make mistakes with this. It took me a while to kind of wrap my head around all of it, but I've done weird power things forever. It was just one more set of things to learn. And then I went, wow, everybody's making mistakes with this because it's It's just different. That's all, just different.
Yeah, and there's not, well, there is a great source of information, and that's the no shock zone.
I do a lot of stuff in no shock zone. That's where I started 10 years ago. I publish all my stuff as RV Electricity over on RV Travel. And I run, the RV Electricity Facebook group, which I've got like 13 odd thousand members on it now.
It's busy.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. So I have a lot of projects going on that I think is really good. I'm in semi-retirement.
You're a power player.
Who knows? Like I said, student of disaster.
Absolutely.
Student of disaster. Yes.
That's fantastic.
I guess the question is, why should we use these? Well, power is dirty. And if something bad happens, it can, in fact, be a very expensive and time-consuming repair on your RV.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. And also with the parts shortages in the industry, it can be a long while before you get. I know somebody who bought a new RV. It happened to have a bad circuit board in the fridge, and they're estimating they won't be able to use it all summer long.
Easily. Yeah. I've got guys that are saying, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, maybe they'll get to it they'll get to look at it. And I will tell you that as a troubleshooter of electrical systems, for 50 years, troubleshooting is the most difficult thing you can do and expensive thing. So you have to understand all kinds of things. So a lot of RV technicians are kind of like in what we call spray and pray mode. They just start replacing things and they hope that it fixes it. And once you put an electronic thing in, you can't pull it back out and put it back in the box.
No.
They're not refundable. I mean, because you don't know if you've burned them up again. Some of them are on the kind of the, learn while you earn thing. They've never seen that thing. Many of the RVs don't have very complete schematics.
Or any at all.
Or any at all. And it's tricky. I look at this stuff sometimes. I'm going, what were they thinking when they did this? I'm trying to go through the whole idea and try to learn what is going on. And after a while, you learn a few tricks. But it's very expensive. It's very time consuming. And then you're right. They got to order parts. Parts many times were coming from China. And there was a huge, huge issue with that over the last year, just trying to get parts in. Yes, I've got guys that said that they were waiting for parts for 6 months.
Oh yeah, it's nuts. And having managed the warranty department at a dealership, the things I've seen from an electrical standpoint in an RV makes me, I wouldn't ever travel without this thing. I mean,
right?
It's an upgrade from the previous one that I had before. So
right, and a lot of this has to do with campgrounds are stressed to the limit in terms of power requirements.
You mean everybody not stressless camping?
No, not at all. Yeah, very stressful stuff. And you just look at this, and in camping back in even the 60s or 70s, maybe you had one plug, maybe, but the now it's as much as a small house that's required.
Well, I mean, we always get sidetracked, but that's okay. But you look at pictures of old campgrounds, there are no air conditioners on roofs of RVs. And now you can't buy an RV without an air conditioner. I mean, I'm sure there's a few out there, but for the most part, they all come with one.
Well, I had one of my readers sent me a photo. He had bought a campground last year, and he had taken a drone up to do some aerial photography, looking at this thing. But he had found when the campground was first put in back in the early 70s, someone had flown a plane over it and had basically the same shot.
How cool is that?
And how cool is that? And virtually, he said, look at the whole thing. And you could probably see 100 campers there. And maybe one of them had an roof air conditioner, maybe one. And he says, now look at this new one. And he says, everybody has got one. There's not a single one that doesn't have at least one. Many have two. Some of them have three.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he says, but the wiring system is the same from the 70s. And we're struggling with this. And, everybody wants power. And he says, it's going to cost me $500,000 to upgrade the wiring in the campground. And that's getting volunteers to help with the trenching.
Wow.
and put it in. And I'm like, oh, brother. And it's everybody's demanding power and no one wants to meter it. So, wow.
Yeah, it's a scary situation.
It's a scary thing. And so now you're and not only that, what I've seen is many people are now kind of camping in their driveway or in their backyard. And this is especially a big thing that was happening with COVID, because we would have people that were putting their camper in the back for their wife who was a nurse or whatever, didn't want to come into the house, contaminate things.
Yep.
And they were hiring an electrician to put in a pedestal for them. These guys were wiring them wrong and burning up things. When people burn stuff up, that's when they call me and I'm going, oh boy, you should have called me a week ago. I would have walked you through. There you go. So it's all of these little things, and we don't have to even get into lightning strikes and all that other stuff. But again, if you value your investment, and an RV is an investment, then you need to protect it. You really do. And that's why I think that these full protection surge protectors are a really, really good deal.
Yeah. Well, you had a slideshow that you made, apparently.
I've got a slideshow, and we can go describe all of the different elements of this. And then I'm back on the other side here. We'll talk a little bit more about that. How's that?
That's fantastic.
And I will I'll walk you through this.
All right. Sounds like fun.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what are surge protectors. They come in all sizes and shapes. The simplest ones are ones you might have in your house, you would call a surge strip. And they're good enough to protect your computer or TV or whatever. But you need a bigger one for your RV. So that's why they make these larger units to do this. On RVtravel.com, I did one, I guess, a couple of years ago, surges and joules and mobs, oh my, which goes through all the bits and pieces of what all of these different words mean. So I'm going to try to explain some of these words to you. It's just a little involved. So first off, I do not like the word surge. It's not really a surge. I've got a lot of background in electronics design, and I would call it more of a spike. Surges, they're generally defined as the short duration over voltage event. Can be between 200 to 2000 volts or more. Spike is like what you get from a lightning strike. It could be milliseconds or even microseconds long. But again, they both have the same effect. It just overwhelms your electrical system in your RV and can cause all kinds of electronic damage. Yeah. Another thing that happens in many cases is what we would just call an overvoltage condition. Your RV wants to have 120 volts, let's say on a 30 amp receptacle, but electricians sometimes they don't understand it, and they will wire up that TT30 outlet like it would be a dryer outlet in your house, and they'll wire it up to 240 volts.
And it looks the same. The outlet looks the same as an RV one.
It looks really, really similar. And they used to allow like 3-pole, or I should say, 3-pin wire connections for dryers. And it's still grandfathered in. And it looks like it. But the TT30 receptacle that you buy to put in, it says right on it, 125 volts max. But these guys look at it and say it must be 240 volts.
Well, we're men. We're not allowed to read the instructions.
We're not allowed to read the instructions. Not allowed to read the instructions. Now, the other thing that you get in 50 amp receptacles are even more dangerous. It's something that it's common in every house here. It's something that we call a split phase service. So it'll be a 120, 240 volts. It's actually 240 volts split in the middle. But if your neutral is interrupted for any reason, that 240 volts does not divide out evenly into 120 and 120. It'll swing. So the one side may drop down to 40 volts and the other side goes up to 200 volts.
Oh boy.
And I guarantee you the 200 volt side will be where all your expensive stuff is hooked up. I think it's the law.
Yeah. Murphy knows what he was doing when he wrote that law.
Man. So there you go. So like 30 amp ones are dangerous because people miswire them accidentally. 50 amp ones, if the neutral opens up, which is a fairly common failure because your 240 volts doesn't divide evenly into 120 and 120. It just starts burning stuff up. So I drew a picture. Here's a neat little picture. Shows what a voltage spike looks like. Doesn't that look like a spike to you?
It does.
That baby's a
absolutely
spike. So usually what happens is something inside of the of your surge protector is called MOV for metal oxide varistor. It's going to clamp that around 300 volts or so. So it will just go like the clamping threshold you see I shows 330 volts on there in the red line, and that's good. That doesn't help with you plugging into a 240 volt thing. That's for when there's a lightning strike nearby or a big voltage spike that's coming in from a pump motor shutting off or whatever.
Or somebody up the leg from you at an RV park plugs in a lousy, poorly wired RV, and
it's crazy stuff happens. The stuff that I've seen happen is just nuts.
And that's something I don't think everybody understands. They say, well, I plugged in and I'm fine, so I should stay fine. Not necessarily. Oh, sometime we'll have to do something about, and we don't have time to go into today, about something I call of course, a hot skin condition, but I call a reflected hot skin condition, where short circuit in an RV up the line can actually cause your RV skin to develop 120 volts on it. Which is bad.
Really, really bad. Really bad. Okay, so let's talk about MOVs. Okay, MOV stands for metal oxide varistor. I guess you could call MOV if you want. I just call them MOVs because I'm lazy.
I like it.
They're rated for both peak voltage and something we call joules. You'll see that they'll on the outside of these boxes, they'll say so many joules of protection. So basically, the more joules of protection you have, they just keep sticking more MOVs in it and keep adding them in, and it gives you more protection against bigger lightning, strikes and all that other stuff.
So the Hughes Power Watchdog that I got says 2,400 joules of surge protection for the 30 amp model, and then if you have a 50 amp, it's 4,800 joules.
Right, it's got doubles of those things. Right. However, every time that MOV is hit with a voltage, it dies a little bit more. It does. You're killing that thing, and so if you have 2,400 joules, basically you could get a 240 joule hit 10 times, or a 1 joule hit 2,400 times, or one big 2,400 joule hit once. It just adds up, and basically it starts destroying these things. And they're really cool. I've actually autopsied a few of them. You can see they're like looks like sand on the inside. It just keeps burning them through. When they're done, they're done. And then a little light goes out that says you got no more MOV left.
And one of the advantages of this thing is that you can replace that component.
The advantage of this particular brand is they have a little circuit board that pops out that you can just swap in without going through any gyrations.
Yeah.
So that's one the claim to fame of these guys is that's how they do it. The other guys don't do it. They just offer some kind of warranty replacement or whatever.
Yeah, throw the whole thing away.
However, many of the surge protectors, in fact, all the ones that I've seen have a little indicator light. When it goes out, it says your MOVs are dead because you've been getting hit. Now, and under normal circumstances, you should get more than a decade of use out of these before you start really wearing through the MOV devices. But if you're in a high risk situation with a lot of things banging away at it electrically, you could wear that out in a month. You could wear it out in one big lightning strike.
Yeah, your first trip out, you theoretically could.
You could. And I've actually had to fly out and done inspections for insurance companies on RVs that have gotten direct lightning hits. Let me tell you, if your RV is directly hit by lightning, none of this stuff is going to survive. It's just not going to. Lightning is just like one of the most crazy, powerful things that you get. I forget what the numbers are. It's something on a typical lightning strike is on the order of 1 billion with a B joules.
Here's a crazy thing. And one of the things when Mike and I talk, we are the kings of side conversations. I know somebody who's been hit by lightning 3 times.
Like his RV or just him?
Oh no, him.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, like half his head had no hair when I saw him. It was. I mean, it left a mark, and it was bad for him. Yeah, crazy. I wouldn't go outside anymore. But anyway,
I wouldn't hang out with him. He's a lightning rod, man. Lightning rod.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, the MOVs need to be replaced once they die. You cannot rejuvenate them. You can only replace them. And let's talk about this joule, and it's pronounced just like jewelry, right?
Right.
So a joule is 1 watt of power for 1 second. It's really what it is. So again, that MOV can absorb a total amount of strikes or spikes before it's destroyed. And they put more of them in there. So again, if you had something that was rated for 2,100 joules of protection, you can get MOVs. They come in like 350 joules. They put 6 of them in there, and that's how they can say that unit's 2,100, or however they want to divide it out. It works. But the more you have, the better off you are, because it'll absorb more hits before it dies. And they will, a lot of times, sometimes these things will sacrifice themselves and just short out entirely. And that's actually a good thing, because what they've done is they've shorted out and they basically protected your RV from all of that voltage going into them. So if the one on the post is blown up and your RV is okay, thank that thing for giving it up for you.
Yeah, because I don't think people realize, especially in a newer RV, how many expensive circuit boards are in it.
Oh, it's just stupid, and everything, the newer they are, they're basically smart houses now.
Oh yeah.
And they don't like this voltage spike stuff. They really don't.
No, I mean, it's and they're, there's a bunch of them, and they're not cheap. And right now, good luck getting one of
right,
them.
Right. So, and you asked me to talk about basic versus advanced protection.
Yep.
On the right, a basic surge protector is just a big boy version of your surge strip in the house. This is one that you could plug in on the post. And it's got some lights on it to tell you at the time that you hooked it up that your ground was okay and your polarity was okay and whatnot. As you were hinting at, you don't know an hour from now what's going to be happening, let's say with your grounds or over voltage or under voltage. So the basic protection ones are good at stopping spikes, but they're not good at over voltage, under voltage, open grounds, any of those other things. Advanced protection devices basically are a computer, and they monitor everything, and they're bigger because they have a big relay in there, what we call a contactor. And so if the voltage goes out of bounds for whatever reason, it trips and it shuts off the power going to your RV. Or if you were to plug this unit into a receptacle that was miswired with, say, 240 volts when it should be 120, they'll just never power up the RV.
Yeah, you get in the case,
you get your warning light, and they'll tell you that
dog
it's
turns red.
Right. Now, interestingly, I've got the dog turns red. The interesting thing, I've had a number of campgrounds. They just complain, none of these guys actually say anything's wrong. It's only those guys with those surge protectors that complain about the power. And nobody else cares. Everybody else accepts it. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And let me tell you the most dangerous thing. An old campground with a new outlet, with a new pedestal, because somebody put it in that probably is not electrically trained. I got bit in an old church with a new receptacle on the wall. Basic surge protectors. A lot of them have warning lights to indicate proper outlet polarity and ground. And again, they're smaller than the advanced ones because, well, they don't have a relay to disconnect them. They don't have a computer. They're just a few lights and a bunch of MOVs. Not much going on in them. The advanced ones, they have warning lights and a message screen of some sort to indicate over voltage, under voltage, ground loss. They're bigger because they've got, computer in them, and they got a relay to disconnect your RV from dangerous voltage. And plus, they all have spike protection. Now, the one thing that one of the big claims to fame from the Hughes unit, which is really quite good, is their app. Now, I only have the iPhone app. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they also have a Android app, but I'm not sure. I think they do.
Yeah, there's on the box here, there's a picture of Google.
It says
Play.
both, yeah, I'm sure. But this is on your phone, and you could sit in the comfort of your RV, and you can monitor pedestal voltage, amperage, wattage, total kilowatt hours, open grounds, any of those other stuff. And it really is quite good. And you can save all of that out, take screenshots. As long as you're within Bluetooth range, there it is. It's really quite good.
I can just see my poor wife like, why don't you put your phone down? We're having dinner. What are you looking at? Facebook? No, I'm looking at how much power I'm drawing.
I'm monitoring the kilowatt hours that I've gone through, or whatever. But it really is kind of good because a lot of times you can troubleshoot your own electrical system if you can figure out how much wattage something is drawing.
Yep.
And this is kind of like knowing the miles per gallon that your car gets. If all of a sudden you get a significant drop in miles per gallon, something is going on. Or you're going through two 20-pound tanks of propane a week rather than one. Something wrong is going on. When something changes, it gives you a hint as to what could be happening. So like I said, the Power Watchdog app is really quite good, I think.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. You can see one of the big surprises is how much power the heater fan draws on a trailer. It's amazing how
they do. People don't get it. Another thing that I do a lot of, and I can't unplug it or my computer will die, is use a little kilowatt meter on individual things. It's really, really handy. But you can do the same thing if you have Power Watchdog. You just basically turn on one thing at a time. You turn on your electric water heater, and you'll see that draws 12, 13 amperes. When that air conditioner comes on, it's going to be drawing a 14 or 15 amperes. When your daughter cranks up her 1,500 watt hair dryer in the bathroom, it's drawing 1,500 watts.
Yeah, everything suddenly goes dark.
Everything goes dark, and we are so spoiled here in America. You have that outlet. You in a house, you have 200 amp service coming in, which is really like 400 amps of 120 volts that you can use. In an RV, if you have a 30 amp service, that's only good for like 3,600 watts. It's 30 amps total. It's only 50% more than one single outlet in your house. That's all it is. And you've got to divvy it up. You got to do manual load shedding, which means if you want to run your convection microwave, wow, that's a huge chunk of it. You want to run your battery chargers now, especially with lithium batteries. They can use 8 or 10 amperes at 120 volts to get it up to that 80 amperes that those lithium batteries are demanding.
I always tell people, if you're changing temperature with electricity, that's where you're really sucking the juice. Like hair blowers, toasters, microwaves, air conditioners, anything where you're changing the temperature is
it's huge. It's just huge amounts. And also coming down the road, of course, is this electric vehicle stuff. So Toads now, and they want to charge those up and down. Oh, all kinds of things are happening.
Yeah.
So I'll just finish this basic slide here, and then we can go back and talk. So do you need a basic or advanced surge protector? And again, basic ones can defend it against short duration spikes, but it cannot disconnect your RV from over or under voltage. Advanced ones will monitor and disconnect your RV from dangerous voltages and open grounds. Basic surge protectors cost less than $100. You can get them for like $75. Advanced ones, like we're talking about today, will cost $300 to $400, depending if they're 30 amp models, 50 amp models or whatever. So again, I think it's cheap insurance, because an electrical problem will destroy your RV's system in seconds.
Yep.
And you look at insurance deductible, maybe it's $500 under a good condition. You have to factor in the weeks or months of downtime to repair your RV's electrical system. I had one that their thing was down for a whole year, and nobody could figure it out. They put it, they actually towed it from someplace down South Carolina up to me in Hagerstown to have me work on it.
Oh, geez.
Wow. And this is after they had towed it from Phoenix, Arizona down to South Carolina.
Holy cow.
I know, and nobody could figure it out. And I went and I figured it out in the first 30 minutes looking at it. And I kept thinking, and this was a major company. They couldn't understand it. They couldn't figure it out. And I'm going, where do you guys get your training? I mean, seriously.
And that it goes back to there is now finally the RV Technical Institute and a few others have really good training, which is a huge opportunity. If you're a young person and you want a lifetime career that's going to pay well, there's your first stop.
I think, there's way too many people and that think that your only course is getting a master's degree and coming out of school with $100 and some odd $1,000 worth of student loans, when in reality, good technical schools are fabulous with this stuff. And, even a good 2-year degree now, you can go out and start earning big money, but you got to pick a degree in something that has life to it. Our RV electrical stuff could be really quite good, I think.
Well, man, this is great information. And I know there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of people out there who say, well, I haven't had a surge suppressor. I haven't had a problem. No.
And that's all true, but it's just like wearing seatbelts. You may not have a problem when you need that seatbelt.
You're very happy to,
really need that seatbelt. And again, the campgrounds now are stressed right to the limit. You could have been the last 20 years. 20 years ago, that wasn't a big problem. 10 years ago, it started to be a problem. Now there's all kinds of problems.
Well, Mike, I really appreciate your taking the time to talk to us about this. This is fantastic.
Well, Tony, thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure seeing you, and I know I'll be talking to you again soon.